NatRev MD, the podcast all about medical billing. I am your host, Dr. Heather Signorelli. Join us as we break down the ins and outs of medical billing, discuss the latest trends, and also share insights to help your practice navigate healthcare finances. NatRev MD is a physician-owned, full-service medical billing and coding company. Check us out at natrevmd.com. That's natrevmd.com. Now on to the episode. Thanks for joining another episode this week. I am excited to talk about our topic today because we just finished quarter one. And I was actually recently talking to a current practice about their goals for 2024 and how they can use their metrics to hit those goals. Now, you guys know I'm a huge fan of taking a goal and putting it into bite-sized chunks so that then you can be successful. If you guys are new to the podcast, like I said, we are a full-service medical billing and coding company. I'm a physician leader who has been in administration for over 10 years, and now we help practices increase their revenue with a reliable and data-driven service. And it's really, truly one of the key things that we do for our clients and our practices is about monthly data dashboards so that they have metrics to make good business decisions. And I truly think that's what makes us stand out as we're not your run-of-the-mill billing company. We are truly a company that tries to prioritize data so that you can make the business decisions that you need in order to increase revenue. Today, we're going to talk all about how to measure success in your practice, evaluate your goals, and then figure out if you need to get back on track. We are going to talk about 5 key metrics you should be tracking and trending. These are going to be items that we typically put in our clients' dashboards and track monthly. So you guys know we just ended quarter one, which means it's time to celebrate those wins and then pivot based on our targets this year or any misses that we've made so that we can get back on track. First things first, did you guys make goals for 2024? If you didn't, I really think it's hard to grow, it's hard to improve without setting those. Obviously, I think it's great if you can set them annually, review them monthly, and adjust them quarterly. And what is truly the worst that could happen, right? So you set a goal, you set a stretch goal, you get close to it, but you need to move the timeline out a bit. Obviously, not a big deal. Personally, I think that it is much better than setting no goals at all, and then at the end of the year being disappointed that you aren't where you wanted to be or where you thought you should be. So I'm going to put a goal out there if you don't have one. And if you are thinking, gosh, I just want to grow my practice, then let's put a goal, 10% gross revenue increase this year. And let's start by reviewing performance from 2023. So you really want to understand monthly averages and then determine how much per month you need to increase in order to hit that goal. So if you say, I want to increase by 10% gross revenue, then you can look back and understand where did you start and where do you need to go for 2024. So for example, if you had $1 million in gross revenue and you want to grow 10%, that means an extra $100,000 in gross revenue, which is roughly about $8,000 to $8,500 extra per month. Now, obviously, if you're starting that in quarter two instead of quarter one, you may have to kind of make up for some of lack of growth in the early parts of the year. But remember, gross revenue is roughly about the same as the net receipts coming into your business, and is all that money that is coming in before you take out expenses. So you need to think about how many patients, how many appointments, how many new physicians or providers are needed to make that happen. And we're going to talk a little bit about those things as we discuss those 5 metrics today. So the first metric you need to be tracking is charges. Let's look back at your 2023 metrics and see what were your total charges for the year. And then what was the average per month? So say your charges are $3 million, again, ease of math, and you think about what that was per month, and then you're going to want to add on an additional percentage to the charges so that you start increasing charges to increase your receipts. So then it's going to go back to how many patients, how many open appointments, how many providers, or how many additional services are you going to need to add in order to increase those charges to then increase net payments. Now, of course, remember, charges are really based on your fee schedule and to some degree really don't mean that much, right? Because it's not really actually what you're getting paid. You get paid based on what your contracts say you will get paid. It's nice to know in general the percentage you are paid based on the amount you charge. This is common to be in that 30 to 40% range and really is based on how high you set your charges fee schedule that you are sending out to the payers. We often see folks charging anywhere from 200 to 300% of Medicare, which is a good place to start. You just have to remember that the higher that is, the higher your AR will look, your accounts receivable. But at the same time, you want it high enough so that if you bill commercial payers, you don't charge less than what they are going to pay you. Now, none of this is perfect, right? Setting goals is about high-level assumption, so I don't want folks to get caught into the weeds on this. So if you want your gross revenue to increase by 10%, you may have to increase the amount of charges by more than that, depending on the percent you get paid of your charges. So you just kind of want to think about that. Now, back to how many patients that is. So again, you're going to want to think through, okay, I want my gross revenue to increase by 10%. I'm going to increase my charges by, 20, 30%, whatever. And in order for me to do that, I need to see this many extra number of patients per month, per week, per physician in order to hit that goal. So again, just a simple math exercise, pen, pencil, paper, sit down, go through this with you or your office manager. Now, the second metric that you're going to want to measure and think about is payments, right? Net receipts. This really is the gross revenue of your practice. This is truly one of the most important metrics you can measure monthly and track and trend. You really do need a good 13-month view of this so that you can track and trend not only month over month, but you can also try and get some seasonality or understand if there are dips related to seasons. Even better if you can track, 2 to 3 years in a spreadsheet. I know that can sometimes be daunting from a data perspective, but it is helpful. We talked about if you're collecting $1 million and you set a goal to increase gross revenue by 10%, then you're looking to increase, obviously by $100,000. And so it's important that you're watching that monthly. So then am I making that progress? Do I need to make up in a different month? Do I need to increase pace, etc.? Now, there are two things that there are going to be to impact your ability to increase gross revenue. One, of course, is going to be patient volume. This makes sense, right? See more patients, increase charges, increase payments. And that's why it's important to understand, patient volume, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But patient volume is really important to track. The next thing that's going to impact your collections or your net receipts is going to be your accounts receivable. Obviously, the better you collect on your AR, the faster you collect on your AR, the more you're going to get paid, the faster you're going to get paid. So that's just another thing that you're going to want to track and trend is basically the age of your accounts receivable so that you can really understand, what is the total amount of money, right? Accounts receivable that is due to you. And this is really something that you want to track monthly, not only by that total, but by the different aging buckets, right? So 0 to 30 is your current day bucket. 31 to 60 is the next, 61 to 90, over 90, over 365. It's nice to see those in different buckets, and hopefully you have no AR over 365. I say that only because if you do have a lot of old AR and you are working with, say, a new billing team that is working to write that off or evaluate it, it's nice to know because most of the time you can't collect on something that's over 365 days. So you really, really, really want to figure out how much that is so that you can get that addressed. And then really that over 90-day bucket is the piece that you want very minimal AR over 90 days. It's also nice to see these account receivable numbers by patient amount versus by insurance amount so that you can figure out what you're going to do with that. Now, Obviously, you're going to want to track other things when it comes to your accounts receivable, denials, etc. But for high level view, which is really what we're talking about today, measuring your accounts receivable, tracking and trending that over a month, and looking at it by aging bucket. So that was the third metric you're going to want to be tracking and trending. The fourth metric is going to be volume of patients into two buckets, new patients and established patients. Sometimes we'll get into the nitty-gritty about procedures or other certain specific CPTs, depending on what the practice is doing. But this is something that we typically track on our monthly dashboards for our practices. That way they can get a glimpse of how different physicians are doing in terms of their productivity, and then also at a high level from the practice, especially if you are trying to grow. You're going to grow by either adding new patients to the office, right? Duh. Or you're going to see your established patients more often, or at least, making sure that they hit all of their yearly appointments. So again, if you are setting a goal that says, I want to increase revenue by 10%, then you've come up with a amount of charges you need to hit. You've then back calculated that into the amount of patients you need to see so that you're increasing patient volume. And then you got to start looking and saying, okay, how many open slots do I have? Am I adding a new physician or provider? How do I help them hit their targets and metrics per month, per week? What are they doing in order to go capture new business? Again, everybody in the business needs to be going after how are they getting revenue increased into their practice. All right, the last and fifth metric I suggest tracking and trending is expenses. This is really so that you can track and trend net profit. This is absolutely critical as a business owner. You have to understand where revenue is spent and see if you can impact expenses at all to help keep costs down and profits up. So you're going to want to track both raw expenses, raw dollar amount of net profit, and then there's also going to be another thing you want to look at, and that is net profit by percent. And that is going to be something that you want to track, maybe not month over month, although it can't hurt, but certainly year over year, because then you can understand as you grow, are your expenses growing at the same percentage? Obviously, looking at expense ratios is really important so that you can understand, are you expecting the same number of productivity from your staff? So if you are growing, but your expenses are growing faster, so your net profit percent is lower year over year, then you need to think through, are certain staff more productive than others? Or is it certain salary, wages, and benefits are increasing because, staff increases have gone up? Are there ways that you can cut other expenses? Again, it's very helpful to have, of course, a fractional CFO or some sort of bookkeeper who can help you kind of look at some of this stuff, but really important for you to really wrap your head around these metrics so that you can know how the business is doing. Obviously, if your net profit is in that 20% range and is stable with that regardless of growth, that may mean that your efficiency is the same regardless of growth in the practice. All in all, we talked today about these 5 metrics that are helpful to track and trend monthly so that you can hit your goals annually every year. We talked about charges and payments, accounts receivable, patient volumes, and expenses and net profits. If you haven't made a goal for 2024, I highly suggest you pull these few metrics for 2023 and really think through, what was your total in 2023? What was your monthly averages for these metrics? And then what are going to be your targets for 2024? How did quarter 1 look? And then what are you going to set as a target for each month in 2024? I hope this episode was helpful for you, and wanted to also share, we have a medical billing course. It's on demand, online, that just started. You guys are welcome to head on over and sign up. All of those recorded courses for the first week will be available to you. Again, this is perfect for front office. We go through everything from top coding mistakes, top credentialing mistakes, the claims process in general, front desk processes. We have lots of policies and procedures and goodies that are part of the coursework. So head on over and check it out on our website, revmd.com, and you can click on billing course. We also have our practice analysis there. You can do and take for free. And again, billing course is there. Sign up before prices go up here in the next 2 weeks. And we look forward to seeing you in the course. We're, of course, happy to do a strategy session with you should you guys need. I hope this episode was helpful for you guys, and see you next week.